What is up, everybody? My name is Stuart. Some of you may or may not know me. I've had some videos featured on my personal S2000 that I've been building for a few years now. 1320, that racing channel. I think they've done a couple videos each at this point. But basically, like I said, I've been building my personal S2000 for a couple years now. I've had some pretty decent success with it. It's basically a 1,000 horsepower street car, still using the factory Honda motor that I drive to work a couple days a week. It's been 820s and a quarter. It's been almost 200 miles an hour and a half mile at 199.6, which is a world record for the S2000 platform. So that's just a little about me, and I'm really just telling you that so that there's some context as to why you see the car behind me in my personal garage before I start building it. This car was sent to me from a gentleman named Rashid in Saudi Arabia via a mutual friend and I guess now a customer and even better friend of mine named Mo that works at Real Street Performance. So I'll be actually building this car in my personal garage, which is why you see, my lawn maintenance equipment and nothing crazy for a home garage. But this is where I built my personal car, and so this is where I plan to build this S2000. So it's a AP1, nothing crazy with it so far, although it is already turbocharged. With it being turbocharged, some people might think there's not a whole lot else we have to do at this point besides maybe build the motor to try and go for the goal that Rashid's looking for. But that's not really the case. To get one of these to be as reliable as it can be and perform well at 1,000 horsepower, it's got to be done with the right set of parts, the right tuner. There's a lot of people involved to make something like that work. So right now it's on a factory long block, factory transmission. It does have a 9-inch rear end, which will be nice because we can retain that. But besides that, pretty much nothing else is going to stay. The plan for the car is to actually convert it over to Motec, put a Motec dash in it, build it to the same long block spec that my car is built to, and then another one of my friend Jamie's S2000 makes 900 is built to as well. It's a very tried and true combination at this point. And I feel very confident in sending the car overseas where he can beat on it, race it, whatever he wants to do with it. Because the last thing I want to do is build a car for somebody and then send it overseas and it's just a pile of crap. That's absolutely not what I'm after. So I've actually had the car in my possession for a couple weeks now. I've been busy doing some racing with my car and then getting some other shop cars of ours at T1 Race Development ready for some big events coming up. So I really honestly haven't been pretty thorough in inspecting this car, so I figured now's as good a time as any, so let's go check it out. First things first, we'll see about what we've got going on in the engine bay. So I don't know a ton of what's already done to it. I believe it's on a Precision 6266, so not a bad turbo choice for a street car. All right, we don't have a hood prop. Let's go poke around and see if we can find that. Maybe in the trunk, because there's not a whole lot of other places to hide something in one of these wannabe Miatas. That's not a good sign. Usually that pops right open. Oh geez, and the Lord's heaviest carbon fiber trunking spoiler of all time. Okay, that is not an S2000 hood prop. So that's better than we currently have. It's kind of shoved in here. Always nice to do that on video. And it looks like we scored a free laptop. So hey, we're already money ahead, right? Okay, that is a little sketch, but is there. So like I said, already turbocharged. It's like a decent job. There's a few things immediately that are definitely things that are gonna have to be addressed. Oil relocation kit, not a fan of that. It's got a tile blow-off valve, which we can retain that. But yeah, it's not half bad. I've seen far worse jobs done, and if anybody with the turbo S2000 is familiar with, you've got quite a bit of room stock, but once you start throwing in the turbo and all the other hot parts, it gets pretty crammed in there. So you can see we've got the downpipe wedge between the fuse box and the battery. At least it's got a heat shield protecting it for right now, but we'll go ahead and relocate some of that stuff, put the battery in the trunk. Crankcase ventilation, just got your basic little fitting inside the factory PCV area and a little breather. It's got what appears to be some not injector dynamics injectors, so those are definitely gonna go, considering I work for Injector Dynamics. So actually what we're gonna end up doing is putting a Magnus Motorsport 8 injector manifold on that. In my car, we've got ID1000 primaries and ID1700 secondaries. With the car being on ethanol and the fact that ID2600s are out, there's no reason for us not to put ID2600s in it. So we'll do that, probably a set of 1050s for the primaries. So that paired along with the Motec ECU, this car should idle like a stock S2000. My car is ridiculous with how well it idles, even with a decent sized cam in it. So that's definitely gonna be the route we go there. And as I mentioned, it is gonna be a Motec ECU. Some of you may be familiar with the Motec series of dash data loggers. So this car is obviously just on a factory cluster right now. And then we've got a series of AEM gauges, which, let's be honest, it's not 2001 anymore. So there's no reason to have all that. We'll put either a C125 or a C127 dash in there that will be able to have all the information that these three gauges are displaying on there. Have shift lights built into it. We can have some actual decent warnings being transmitted from the ECU instead of just getting a basic check engine light. We'll be able to actually say, okay, we've got low fuel pressure, we've got low oil pressure, there's, whatever. You can come up with 1,000 different channels of monitoring and we'll throw a warning up on there. So it's extremely informative. So I'd really like to make sure that we do that. Like I touched on, it does have a 4.9" in it. So very solid rear end setup. I need to really get it on a lift or higher up on jack stands to see the quality of the kit that's actually installed on there. And once we see that we're happy with the rear end setup that's in there, we can move forward with then checking everything as far as alignment goes between the trans and the drive shaft and the rear end. A lot of people tend to overlook when they put rear end swaps in these cars. Nobody checks the actual measurements between the drive flanges on the rear end and the transmission. I went through 3 or 4 or 5 stock transmission cases, what ended up being a misalignment due to just a poorly engineered R200 diff swap kit. So I actually ended up kind of reverse engineering, figuring that out, driving it 600 horsepower, just beating the absolute crap out of it, and never heard a stock AP1 transmission for a few months. I wanted to do that before I put a good gearbox in it, which I could damage because of the same reasons. So once I got that sorted, I actually put a Quave sequential in there. And like I said, we're kind of gonna make this car just a more street car version of my car, which is kind of a race car that can be driven on the street. So this car will additionally be getting the Quave sequential and a Science of Speed twin carbon clutch. So it should be just an absolute blast to drive on the street, repeatable shifts every time, no lift shift with the strain gauges gonna come on it. Kind of unrivaled when it comes to still, stick shift transmissions available for this platform. Something I actually thought would be fun before I tore into the car was going to be getting some performance metrics so we could kind of compare before and after from the car making. I think it's somewhere around 500 horsepower, it's supposed to be right now, to the roughly 1,000 or 1,100 it's going to make later. So I took the car out a couple weeks ago with the draggy and tried to do a 60 to 130, and the clutch is just so toast in this car that it acted like it's blowing the tires off like 100, 120. So sorry, we're not going to be able to do before and after. I'll post a video, or I'll share the video here so you guys can watch and see just how ridiculous it was. But we'll get some good videos after. Hopefully it's still shocking enough to see how fast it accelerates with new power level that we won't really care about the before and after at that time. So as far as looking over the car before we really tear into it, that's about as good as we can do. So this is what I've been looking forward to doing for the last couple weeks, month now. I'm ready to get on jack stands, tear it apart. It's just a boatload of fun, especially when I know that it's being built for an owner that's just gonna absolutely love it. I can guarantee this is gonna be, if not the greatest street-driven S2000 of all time, be within the top 2 or 3. I mean, this car is basically, with all due respect, a no-budget build. All the best parts are being used. The best tuner, Tony T1 Race Development, is going to be tuning it. It's going to be on the best ECU available. It's going to be an absolutely incredible build. I hope you guys enjoy this build as much as I'm going to. I'll try and share some of the big key steps along the way. If you do want to follow along, make sure you subscribe. And like I said, I'll try and keep some really cool videos coming with you guys along the build. So let's get into this thing. All right, so got the first couple hours of work done on the S2000. Didn't really find anything crazy with it. Just basically got the turbo stuff off, some of the electrical stuff out of the way. I guess really the only not super surprising but kind of disappointing is just the lack of any real understanding about like how to properly do the heat protection on the wiring, and then just shoddy wiring, kind of half-ass run throughout the system. But I don't think I actually touched base on it yet. Luckily, all the engine harness stuff on this car is going to be replaced. Joel, that owns Race Spec out of New York, is a really good personal friend of mine, has done a couple wire harnesses between the dash and the engine harness on my personal S2000, a bunch of the cars at work, Brandon's Integra. So there's nobody in the world I trust better or trust more than him at wiring. So we've already got a plan together for doing engine harness on here, doing a full chassis harness, dash harness, all that. So luckily all this, or for the most part, the really bad wiring in the engine bay is gonna be gone. I'm not gonna have to worry about tracing wires, stripping back insulation, anything like that. So I think that's gonna do it for the first episode. I think we got a good start. Probably the next video, we'll get the engine out, get the trans out. If there's any weird things we find along the way, we'll cover it then. Later.